Welcome to today's episode of Insights with Us. I'm Anastasia, a licensed professional counselor, owner of Happy Mind Wellness Company, a Colorado-based therapy practice, and creator of this podcast. My goal is to use this platform to help others find their voice as we share our journeys and show support as we learn more about ourselves in life. Growth happens when we get uncomfortable, which happens when we sit with new ideas we haven't sat with before. I hope we can work on this journey of personal growth and understanding together. As a disclaimer, there may be swearing in this podcast, but sometimes we get caught up in the human experience. It happens. And sometimes we can talk about difficult or activating topics. So maybe put on some headphones if you need to, and remember that support exists for you if you want it. I cannot even begin to describe the excitement that I have for today's episode. My last guest, Ray, and I have been fanboying over our partners' friendship since we met them. And the two of us have been talking about wanting to get them on the podcast to share their friendship with all of you. And today, it is finally happening. Ray and I are joined by our partners, Elliot and Ethan, and we get to talk about how completely wholesome, authentic, and accepting their friendship is. They have known each other for almost 30 years at this point, which, you'll get to hear the story a little bit, and they are still each other's favorite people. They are a perfect example of how to build long-lasting friendships and to have someone that you can lean on no matter what. So get ready for a love fest, and let's see if we can build some insight today. All right, welcome to Insights with Us. We have several voices today. We have Elliot joining.
Hi.
We have Ethan.
Hi, great to be here.
Which is Elliot's best friend, and I cannot wait to have everyone here listen to what the two of you have to say today. And then we also have Ray, who has been on the podcast twice before now. We have a veteran in our midst.
Back again.
Again. So we had mentioned the last time Ray was on the podcast that we know each other through Ethan and Elliot. So we decided we needed to get all of us on the podcast for an episode, and we are going to talk about friendship. And that might look like sharing stories. We could talk about the relationship friendship, because we are definitely, as partners, friends with each other. And then, as a couple, we are friends with each other. There's just so many different layers and dynamics today. So I am so excited to have all of you here. I am excited to have this conversation. So to start with, I want to just kind of open this up of, how do you view friendships? Like, what's your definition? What's your ideal friend? Like, what does being a friend mean to you?
So I think I can cover that first a little bit, or at least hit on some of the notes. So for me, a friend is someone who you can really be yourself around. Not necessarily like I don't think that we need to necessarily be someone else when we're around other people. I personally struggle to not be me. So I think that kind of varies the definition a little bit, but for me, someone you can be comfortable being yourself around is a huge part of having a friendship. Someone you can kind of lean on if you need someone to support you, just someone to shoot ideas off of. And this is something that I heard from Ryan Reynolds talking about Hugh Jackman, but I genuinely just want the best for my friends. I am just always rooting for you. I am always in your corner, no matter what. And that to me is a big part of friendship, what it means to be a friend for me. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's a lot that I missed, but that's just the first thing that comes to mind.
Yeah, I think the first thing you said is spot on, that people that you feel comfortable being yourself around, because there is nothing harder than trying to be friends with someone who you clearly can't feel comfortable being yourself around. I think what's impressive about Elliot and I, which is why I'm so excited to share our friendship, is that we've been doing this for so long and we've changed so much as people and still feel comfortable being ourselves around each other. I think having a support system where wanting the other person to win comes so naturally because you can be yourself around that person makes the friendship like that much more special.
Yeah. Like you're not competing. You're not trying to like, who's going to win this or who's going to do better. It really is just you are yourself. Elliot is himself, and you just support each other no matter what season you are in your life.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that like for me too, I don't know, when I think about my best friend who I talk about literally every time I'm on this podcast, I just like, I don't know who I am without her. I don't know who I would be without her, but it's more than, it's like, I'm not happy unless you're happy.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, it's almost as if my heart lives outside of my body in a way of like huge, like I just feel so much more regulated when she's around. It's, yes, I can be my true self, but also she in a way like shows me who I want to be and makes me a better person. I mean, I feel like my friendship with Ethan and my friendship with Raina, both of them make me want to be better. And I think that that is one of those like balancing aspects that's so key and pivotal in friendships, is like not just, oh, you like this thing and I like that thing and we balance each other out, but more like maybe what I'm lacking you have and I strive to be that, you know?
When I think about friendships, one of my favorite ways to think about it is the way little kids make friends, because at the most simple level, it's two people choosing to support each other and spend time together. Just one person reaching out to another and saying, I like spending time with you. Let's just keep doing that. And in a way, you know, taken out of all of the like stresses and complicated factors of life, that's really what being best friends with someone means, is just choosing to keep the other person in your life. And, you know, for us, that means being ourselves and supporting each other. But really, it's just saying, I just want to keep you around in my life. You're just that important to me. And we've just been continuing to choose that for almost our entire lives. And I think that's very cool and very special.
And I definitely want to hear that story, but I want to add a piece as well. As all of you are talking, because I'm thinking about my time with Elliot, but also my time with my best friend, Sadie, who comes on this podcast all the time as well. We should get Raina on too. Actually,
Oh my God.
the two of you together for the next one. And then I'll get Sadie and me to talk about, we'll just do a whole series. It'll be great. But I'm thinking not just, you know, that acceptance of who you are and, you know, also that complimentary piece, but also I feel so seen by both of you and by you two as well, since I've gotten to know you two over the years. But I feel so seen as myself. So it's not just I accept you as that, but I understand how you need to show up or what helps you feel excited. And, you know, I visited Sadie down in Cortez several years ago, and it is still one of my favorite vacations to this day because she planned all of it and she purposefully planned in nap time for me. Like we did, it's true love. Like we did all this crazy stuff in the morning and then we had like a planned siesta, and sometimes we took naps, sometimes we watched a show, but we just relaxed and did nothing for middle of the day. And then we went back out in the evening instead of all day, every day, let's go nonstop. And I just remember her heading back to her house and me being like, wait, what are we doing? She goes, oh, it's nap time so that we can both recharge. I'm like, this is what I needed. Just you get me. And there was no judgment. I could just need a nap that day and there was no problem with it.
Yeah, there's like the TikTok quote, or not the TikTok quote, but I see it on a lot of TikToks in the comments of like sweet or romantic videos or just like gestures of love from one person to another. And the comment is always to be loved is to be seen. Yeah. And I think about that every single time. Like somebody does something like that or like thinks about you or does emotion that kind of just says like, I know you deeply and I planned for this. It's so like, oh my God, thank you.
And that I want you to know how much I care, that I see you and am acting on it because that's how I want to express my love. I'm really glad you use that phrase, being seen, because I think that sums up very nicely how I view friendships, especially now as, adults.
Yeah, and I think that also comes from the communication, right? Like being able to be like, I really don't like that, or this is something I'm really passionate about. And I think understanding how much the other person can take before they need to like take a break, or like, I really don't like, we were talking about this a little earlier, but me liking vacuuming and Anna not liking vacuuming, like that kind of offsets itself and allows it to kind of, affect and show itself up in different ways as well. I mean, Ethan and I went on a was that almost 2-week long road trip. And it was really cool being like, yo, like, what do you want to do? Do you want to eat? Do we want to like, let's check out this new feature. Ethan did a great job of like finding all of these places on this road trip. And on my birthday, we went to this roadhouse, and I think he told someone that it was my birthday, and I got pulled up on stage.
Some people would hate, but because Ethan knows Elliot loves that kind of stuff. You have no problem being pulled on stage and being the center of attention. Like that would have been, I know a lot of people that would have been their nightmare. I probably would have been okay with it, but it would have made me uncomfortable,
And a good point to add to that too is maybe I don't necessarily feel that way. I mean, in this specific example, I think I would have been fine on stage, but maybe we're talking about a friendship that one person would be very uncomfortable in that situation. And I think a good friend is someone who can take those differences without judgment. Be like, not only are we different, or we have these different roles, or we might feel more or less comfortable with different things, but creating space for that comfortably, without judgment, without making that person feel bad for who they are and how they react naturally, is another amazing sign of a good and supportive friendship.
So with that said, can you tell me a little bit more about how the two of you met? Because this has spanned decades at this point.
It's a wonderful story we've told many times. So we were 3 years old. We were at kindergarten, and it was playtime, had a lot of toys out. And Elliot and I both really wanted the same toy. And we tussled over it, and I lost badly. And he got the toy, but we kept trying to play with each other. And turns out we never stopped being friends since that moment. So we are both 29, and we have been friends for 20.
30 now.
Now 30.
He
that's
just
right.
turned 30. You guys are so young.
So with that, yeah, so now we've been friends for 27 years.
27
years.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it was Rosh Hashanah services too. And we were at the kiddie play area or whatever out of services.
Yeah, at our Jewish day school.
Oh my God, happy anniversary, guys.
yeah, that just passed. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, we have to do something big for your 30th anniversary
Yeah.
of friendship.
But yeah, 27 years going strong. I do remember there were a couple of years there where you were in Pennsylvania, in New York, in California, and just throughout all of that, we were calling each other. I actually visited you in New York for Thanksgiving one year, and you took me to the top of 30 Rock, and that was sick.
That was fun.
Yeah, and just consistent communication with each other, I think was huge for that.
Mm-hmm. I think one of the reasons that Elliot and I have stayed friends for this long, and I was telling Ray this earlier, is that I think we share a lot of very foundational experiences. We were in the same school system technically, but we never went to the same like elementary, middle, high school. But we, went to the same Jewish day school growing up. And we went to the same summer camp for a little bit of time. We actually ended up missing each other through different sessions, but we both went to the camp and knew all the traditions and songs and everything. We're counselors in training together. And I feel like we spent so much time in the same sort of cultural spaces that it really makes sense that we stuck together for so long, because when we think about our childhoods, not only are we a part of each other's childhoods, but we shared in a lot of the same like childhood traditions, like summer camp especially. I mean, it's a great way to have the same songs, have the same kind of like memories. Like, I remember doing this activity at summer camp. Oh, so do I. I remember how I felt on those days. That's a really amazing way to bond with someone, especially, thinking about childhood.
I did find it funny that we went in different times too, because it was I think I got you in the first year was, oh man, what was that, like 2007, 2008, something like that. And the first session we went together, and then every year after, it was like you went first session, I went second session, and we just like, because we shared the same experience at the camp, but even though we weren't together, it was that bonding activity, which was interesting in that we shared those experiences but not together,
kind of being able to process it after the fact and build a connection through it.
And it gave us more to talk about. And truthfully, I think I'm realizing now that maybe that specific experience of having similar times at let's say summer camp but not being there at the same time was really good practice for when we lived in different parts of the country but still wanted to stay friends, because it helped us understand how to communicate long distance and how being apart doesn't mean that you stop being friends with someone. And I mean, that was 13, 14, 15, we were like around that time that we were both going to summer camp, but at different times. I mean, that's a very foundational moment to be learning about like kid transitioning into adult friendships.
And we went to Israel together as well with that same group for 5 weeks. I'm pretty sure we were on the same bus as well. So that was, that
Wait, did I hear LARPing?
Yes. Elliot and I LARPed together.
Hell yeah.
We created a whole world. We created characters. It wasn't just he and I. My brother, my younger brother, participated as well, and some of our friends occasionally. But yeah, we wrote everything down.
Ethan wrote everything down
together. We played spies together. I mean, we did a whole bunch of.
We actually read the same books as kids too. I remember we read like Spy High together. We read with the Splinter Cell series. Like
I'm still on the LARPing though. What was your favorite world that you built together?
I'm trying to remember.
Key Quest? Was it Key Quest? Was the name of it?
We called it Key Quest. We've talked about this. Ray and I talked about this a lot, actually. How we picked.
Wait, sorry to interrupt you, Ethan. We've been together for 2.5 years, and I do not remember talking about this. So I'm fascinated.
I have also never heard this story.
Well, the only time that we talked about it was when I mentioned the characters that we came up with, because typically, like when you're inventing a persona for yourself, especially as a kid, I feel like it makes more sense to try to be someone else. Oh, well, I'm gonna, maybe I don't feel very cool, but I can create a character who is very cool. Or maybe I'm like really athletic, but I want to try playing like the genius MacGyver this time. No. Elliot was the strong, attractive, athletic person, and I was like the little nerd figuring out how to teleport places. Like, it was absolutely just us with different names.
He was definitely the inventor of the group. I'm pretty sure.
You just had more abilities, exactly as you are. Again, authenticity here. You two are so true, exactly as you are, even when you're pretending. I love this.
Yeah.
But that's such a perfect example of what we were saying earlier about being comfortable with each other. Like, how can you not feel comfortable, and become a lifelong friend with someone that you're comfortable role-playing games and characters and like embarrassing yourself in front of this person?
Fighting imaginary people, yeah.
It's like continuing the bit. I mean, that's the people that I have the most fun with too. I mean, it's like if I'm out somewhere with Raina and like there's some heinous noise coming from down the street, I'm like, oh, my favorite song, and she'll be like, yeah, girl, bop it. It's just like you just keep going with it. It's again being seen.
Like
I think
friendship,
that's so special.
like friendship improv.
Yeah.
I mean, isn't that just what life is anyway? We're all just improving all the time.
Yeah.
We just need our troop,
Yeah.
No, I'm pretty sure you still have that notebook at the lake house, right?
I'll have to look for it.
There was like drawings of ships that he invented in his
gosh.
brain. I remember.
I gotta see this.
Pretty sure I stole half of it from a Hot Wheels TV show.
Or Transformers or something like that. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Okay, so I'll move on from the LARPing. I feel like I could spend a whole episode hearing about these characters though. You had mentioned earlier, Ethan, this idea of like how that helped you transition into having a long distance friendship and shifting into adulthood. I'm curious about how the two of you have managed to keep that alive. Like what tools you do practice to have that long distance friendship.
So like sometimes on my lunch break, I'll just check in with Ethan. Like, hey, like I remember we were talking about work and like how's work doing with you. We were talking about the apartment and how's that going. We were talking about our future trips that we have planned. We'll talk about Star Wars sometimes.
Actually checking in with each other's lives and not just, hey, did you see the game last night?
Yeah. I don't think we've ever talked about sports.
No. Which is another reason we're friends.
From an outsider point of view too, I am so impressed with the way that the amount that you guys communicate. Like the way that you guys call each other is something that I have never really seen before, and I think it's so impressive and so instrumental in how you guys keep your friendship going.
Ray had a really nice metaphor for how our friendship, but also long distance friendships in general work, which is us kind of being on parallel paths, and those paths diverging in different directions, both physical distance and also maybe life takes us in different directions, but like having the paths close to each other, being able to see each other on our journeys is so important to us, and neither of us want to lose sight of each other. And when one of us feels that there's too much distance, and usually that just means we haven't talked in a while, neither of us wants to let that go. And I think we've maintained our friendship for so long because no matter what was happening, whether it was, me moving away and us not seeing each other for many, many months at a time, or even some stretches of going a couple of months without communicating, we never forgot about each other. And we always knew, like, I want to make sure that we can still see each other on our paths. And we've been tested on that multiple times. I mean, I moved out to Pennsylvania in high school and then came back to Chicago for college. We remained friends. The COVID pandemic obviously was really hard on a lot of people's friendships. And then during that, Elliot moved out to Colorado. So I lost one of my best friends. But we didn't, lose our friendship together. And it's because through all those moments, even though him moving away was tough, in the moment, we never accepted that we were going to stop being friends. We always wanted to keep sight of each other and make sure that we check in. And we just figured out how to do that, which is, consistent phone calls, a couple of text messages, and, trying if we can to see each other at least once a year. And whatever that rhythm looks like for different people is whatever works. But like, that's I never want that to change, you know, and I always want to make sure that we're keeping sight of each other, even, you know, as our paths are in different directions.
I would say we've made it a priority too. You know, it's not just like, oh, we just don't want to, like, I actively, you know, I value our friendship more than a lot of the other relationships I have in my life, because we have that shared enthusiasm for each other.
Right.
And when, even no matter how much time has passed, whenever we're hanging out, whenever we're talking, it feels like no time has passed. And we just kind of fill each other in on the middle. It's very easy to just like have those conversations with you. And like, I don't think I've ever been like, oh, should I tell him that? Like, I'm usually a complete open book, but with you especially too, like I'll go a little more in depth about like how things make me feel. And, and I think we're able to be like, how are you actually like feeling during this? Like, how does this, the creaky floorboards in your apartment, how does that make you feel? You know, and I think being able to just talk about not just where we are in life physically or with our jobs, but like emotionally, how are we doing, you know? And again, going back to that,
I want to know the answer.
Yeah, I actually want to know, like, how are you doing? What can I do to support you? And, you know, yeah, I feel like that has been just a pivotal part of our friendship.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Well, your presence is always felt too here, like the way that you are at the forefront of Ethan's mind. Like when we have conversations with people, even like last night you were brought up, and it's just like you're such a pivotal part of his memories and the way that he thinks about stuff. And so like I don't want to speak for you, but as an outsider into this friendship, it is just like you're always thought about, and always you're always here even if you're not here. So I feel like it's like a signifier of how important you are to him, because it's always like, well, Elliot did this, and then when we were here and Elliot said this, and it's just like the same way I bring up Raina every single conversation. you're always there.
Yeah. Elliot, Ray and I before the podcast were talking about like our friendship a little bit, and I talked about how, like, you know, similar to a passion that, you know, you or I might have, like, you know, for example, Ray and I are both really into, you know, being artists. Like I work on, you know, video stuff. She works on graphic design. The way that you're passionate about, you know, physical fitness and helping people move and being, you know, our passions in life, I think, no matter how they change or where our career takes us, will always be part of us, will always be like one of the many puzzle pieces that you know, fit into our lives. And I truthfully feel like you and our friendship is one of those puzzle pieces that I don't think I want to not have you around, because me, like, being friends with Elliot is part of who I am as a person. And that is truthfully one of the biggest reasons that we've stayed together, is because like we're foundational in each other's lives and we're a part of each other just because we grew up together and continue to choose to share our lives together, even if we're not physically in the same place.
I'm like actually tearing up.
You're gonna make us cry over here.
You both made the same face when Ethan said that.
Okay, I have two thoughts. First is that, you know, you go months without seeing each other and that doesn't become a barrier. Like at no point do either of you doubt of like, oh no, too much time has passed. I don't know if I can reach out. Like we'll literally just be mid conversation and he will pause and be like, you know what? I have to talk to Ethan in a minute. I really need to text him. Like, it's like our conversation stops existing because he misses you so much.
No, I'm gonna cry.
And like last night when we were prepping for all of this, I wanted to make sure all the mics and everything worked. He literally got giddy and started dancing. He's like, I get to see Ethan tomorrow and I cannot wait. I'm just so excited to see my friend. And so just the fact that the barrier, like there is no barrier. The barrier does not exist because you two prioritize each other, and that is foundational. But also, can we just take a moment and just sit in how vulnerable that was? like, I think that's something Ray and I talk about one-on-one whenever we are together as a group, just watching the two of you exist together. It is so pure. It's like you're still those 3-year-olds just playing together. And, you know, you hug each other and you'll sit on the couch up against each other and you have no problem showing that love.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring the no problem sharing that love. I have never felt like, oh, like, should I be touching Ethan right now? Like, it's never been like, I'll touch you all day, every day, you know? There are no barriers. I don't really care. And let people think what they want to think. Like, I don't care.
You're just making it more and more dirty as you talk.
Yeah.
No barriers at all.
No barriers. And for those of you listening, Elliot likes to give massages because he's in physical therapy and likes to fidget. So he's constantly like rubbing everyone's shoulders and just giving hugs. And it's very, very wholesome, even though it sounds very dirty.
Yeah. I mean, we have been mistaken for a couple many times. Yeah.
I had time to think about this recently, and I think the best way to describe this is to, whether you want to, you know, believe in this view of things or not, but love languages. And, you know, if you're looking at a love language framework, one of them is physical touch. And as it turns out, just because of naturally who we are, Elliot and I both strongly express affection through physical touch, not just to each other, but like in general, you know, relationship with Ray and friendships and family. It's just like, you know, hugs and handshakes and everything. Like, that's just very important to me. And it is to Elliot as well. And when you're really able to be yourself and comfortable with someone and vulnerable with someone, and you both express your affection in general through, like, let's say, physical touch, well, yeah, we're gonna like cuddle together and hug and like spend a lot of time expressing our friendship in that way. And I don't think that's very common, but it's always worked for us.
I think it kind of just reminds me too of like I always told my best friend, like, it's such a shame that I'm not attracted to you because you're my soulmate. Like, you're the person. But I think that, like, so the perfect example is that when I was growing up, one of my favorite movies was this movie, Fried Green Tomatoes. And if you haven't seen that, the main relationship is very like hinted at because it wasn't okay to be gay at that time between two women. But when I was a kid, I did not pick up on that whatsoever because I was just viewing it as like they love each other. Now, realizing as I got older, it's like, oh, there's definitely sexual undertones there that I never caught before, obviously. But like the whole root of it is that, like, that's how I view mostly female friendship, but also through being with you and seeing your relationship with Elliot, opening that up to some male friendships as well, although very rare, I would say. But like, people always mistook before we got together, Raina and I, for being a couple too, because it's like the love is the same. You just take one portion out of it, of like the physical sexual attraction, and that what's left is just the pure love of an actual soulmate. And so I feel like you guys have that.
Well, I mean, who's to say there's no sexual attraction there? You know,
I mean, but you keep it on your wraps out of respect, right?
Just because they are straight men does not mean that they are not attracted to each other. No, Sadie and I always got mistaken for a couple as well, and we started joking and calling it queer platonic.
Yeah.
No, just we're platonic, but we're a little queer with it. Like, it's fine.
Exactly.
I think it's notable, though, how all of us can relate to this experience. I've never been in a social circle where I feel like everyone has had this experience with what you call like queer platonic, because it's not something that is very often discussed, let alone shown or shared publicly. And there's definitely stigma that many people will attach to it. I'm thinking about videos like Maisie Williams and Sophie Turner from Game of Thrones, like best friends, like taking a bath together and like sharing funny videos of that on social media. And there was a lot of like, whoa, what's happening between them? Is there like something, going on? There was a lot of gossip around it. And I think maturing is realizing they're just friends who know how they want to express their affection to each other. And Elliot and I have always been at that comfort level. And there is so much stigma around certain types of that, expression of affection and love. But I really love Elliot. I really do. And we are friends who love each other, and we express that however we want to. And there should be nothing wrong with that.
And I think that's something that I appreciate about our friendship as well, is that I feel like some of the friendships that I have, like, there's a lot of like, oh, like people are looking, or, like just caring about the optics of it all, and like caring like how we are viewed. And at least me personally, I've never cared about that. I, to a certain point, obviously, but like, I've always been one to just kind of prioritize doing what I need to and want to do over like how other people view me. And I think that's something I appreciate about you as well, that you don't really feel those pressures, or you might feel them, but like you allow them to exist and continue on anyways. And I think that allows us to be and express our friendship in ways that otherwise would be socially unacceptable, I guess.
I even remember you telling me with other friendships that you have, Elliot, I asked them how they were and they didn't really want to talk about it. Mm-hmm. Or I started to open up about something and they would say, whoa, I've never talked about this kind of thing with anyone ever before. Meanwhile, you two on the phone, you'll talk for like 4 hours straight and go into every detail about every experience and how you're processing it, what season of your life you're in. And just, it is so different from most friendships I see.
That effortless conversation that you're talking about is something that I actually took from Ethan and I's friendship and brought into my, like, this is what I want romantically. I want to be able to to talk with someone and just time passes. And like, I have no idea like what time it is. And that's something that I feel with you, Anna, is that we can just talk about anything forever. And I think that is something that I learned from Ethan and I's friendship. Thinking back, I remember it was like winter or something, and Ethan and I were like, I think we just picked a random hotel in Chicago and just sat in the lobby and we're literally just talking for hours until like 2-3 in the morning and like didn't even realize it. And it was just such fun, effortless conversation. And I don't really feel that with all of my friends. I don't really feel that with everyone in my life. But I do think that is something that I value greatly in a relationship overarching.
I can't imagine a best friendship any other way, because I feel like, friends that I've had that have come and gone, through high school or through college, where it's like, yeah, I remember being friends with that person, but we don't catch up anymore. And thinking back on it, it's because I never got to that level of comfort. I talk about sometimes with friends, like, you're almost playing a character or a version of yourself sometimes. So if it's like a friend through class, you're kind of playing, that more academically focused person. If it's someone through like, I was in like bands and percussion groups in college, and maybe it's more, you're playing up that musician side of yourself. But sometimes it's exhausting to focus on some part of yourself that you might identify with, but doesn't feel like you through and through naturally all the time. And that there's always this fear that if I truly expressed how I felt, then maybe I wouldn't be as close friends with that person, or maybe we would realize we don't have as much in common. Well, what does that say about how natural that friendship is? And I've never once felt that way with Elliot. We can, our interests could diverge in almost completely opposite directions, and I would still be extraordinarily fascinated with what you were doing and how you felt about it and what you were learning and what got you excited about this thing. Like, Elliot's not a drummer and I'm not into physical therapy and kinesiology, but like, I love hearing what you enjoy about it, and we create that space for each other because we know how much it is natural to us, and it feels good to share that.
Yeah. And, interesting you kind of bring that up because, like, growing up, you're just so intelligent, Ethan. And like, I was like, you can do literally anything you want. Like, you could be a doctor, you could be a surgeon, you could be a pilot. I remember for a while there, you had the pilot simulator going on at your house.
I did want to be a pilot. That's true.
And I was like, you could do literally anything you want. And you chose something that you were passionate about. And you chose something that you loved. And like, yes, you've grown into someone who can actually make money off of that, which is phenomenal. And I appreciate that about both of you, actually, because you both are in that industry. And I think that's so cool. And the fact that, you pursued something that you were passionate about rather than something that can make you money. I think that's something that we both can appreciate. And like, I'm not exactly expecting to make a lot of money doing what I do, but it makes me happy, and it makes me happy that you're happy. And I love listening to you talk about it. And I actually remember going to almost every year when you were in Boom Shaka and doing like the percussion stuff. And I actually, every year I tried to show up and support you in that. And I loved seeing you grow and like, oh, like I learned this really cool thing about videography, and I was like, oh, that's super cool. Like, I've watched your videos, and I appreciate that how good you are at what you do, the passion that you find behind what you do, and that you continue pursuing it. And that's something that I appreciate about you and our friendship as well.
That's really sweet. I really appreciate you saying that. And yeah, like same for you, watching you go through your journey, going to your rock climbing events, having you teach me how to, give massages and how different muscle groups worked. And anytime I had, an issue with something, sleeping on something wrong or something is sore, like, there's other people I could call, but you were always the first person because I knew that you would, give it to me straight and like be able to help me understand what was happening on, a level that I knew I would understand because it's you sharing it with me. So that's very sweet.
I gotta say too, the importance and value that both of you place on transparency is incredibly important. Like, not just the vulnerability, but the trust that if the other person says or has something going on, like, they'll tell you, and you don't have to feel like, oh, I'm not getting the whole truth, or I'm not getting everything. Like, as an example, something that Raina had pointed out, that when we first started becoming friends, something that she was like, oh, I really like this person a lot, is that she made a reference to something and I laughed. And then I was like, wait, actually, I don't know what you're talking about. And she was like, it was just the automatic turnaround of being like, I don't know why I laughed at that. I don't know what you were talking about. And being very honest about that. She was like, I can trust this person. And then as that kept going, and like there are times when, like, if I'm upset over something she did, I tell her immediately, or I say like, hey, just so you know, like, when you said that, it really hurt my feelings, and I know that you're not out to get me or anything, but like, I can't let this fester and just like hide it from you. So it's that transparency that I think you guys do as well. That's not just about like being honest about what's wrong, but also being honest and transparent about what you love about each other. And it's just really special. And I don't think you see that a lot from male friendships, which I think you guys are really great, like male role models for younger friendships and boys.
So as someone who's like kind of on the spectrum and has trouble like reading certain social cues, having that transparency is just so important to me having that feedback and like, this is what you did, and this is how that might have made this person feel. Like, that is so helpful for me. Because, unless I am told, I can't read your mind. And I think that's true with a lot of people as well. But like, having those friends who, like, if he tells me something, I know he's not trying to hurt me. I know it's like, it is to help me correct a behavior or an action that might have, made someone uneasy. And that's like, I know that he knows that that's never my goal. And like, I'm not taking anything that he tells me as like, whoa, dude, like, what are you trying to say? Like, I understand that it's always going to be in my best interest. And I agree that transparency is just so helpful, not just for me, but I think the general population would benefit from just being a little more honest with each other. And like without the intent of like, this person wronged me, let me screw up their life.
You also, oh, go ahead.
Oh, I just, my therapist brain is nerding out right now. Because one, we started off with a huge love fest where both of you just said all the things you love about each other and how much you love seeing your passions and just how much you love supporting each other, which shares fondness and admiration and helps build that greater intention of good intentions, right? Like, I'm not trying to hurt you. And then we flip to, and sometimes we talk about stuff that's hard, or, you know, you do something that upsets me. And I know that it's coming from a good place when you say that. And just that is a perfect example of how to build that trust when you want to start saying something that can be a little bit more difficult of a conversation, starting with the love first. So yeah, my brain got so excited watching that happen just now, naturally.
Something that I've learned both through friendships and romantic relationships is I really hate walking on eggshells. I hate, like, I heard someone describe it as like unmentionables, like lines you just can't cross, or even just the general idea of like, well, I don't want to bring up something that might be troubling or might bring the mood down because I don't want to like ruin the vibe. I mean, it's a generic way of saying it, but I feel like when we've come at, you know, our friendship with such a good foundation, like you described, there's no way to bring down the mood. I would rather, if Elliot's having a really tough time and needs to tell me something, whether it's something that he's struggling with in life or something that like I've done that really has been bothering him and he needs to share with me, that he can say how he's feeling and we can work through it, because we've, without discussing it, agreed in our lives that we are going to be able to share those things with each other. And I just don't think that I can see myself being friends with someone where I can't touch on certain topics, or I can't, and that comes back to like really being your true self. I think that you need to have that foundation first of we love each other and what we're talking about is coming from a place of love, and like I need help because I'm hurting, and maybe someone else hurt me, or maybe I scared myself, or maybe you're hurting me and you might not know it, but we need to confront this and I need your support to confront it together. And that is something I never want to lose. It now that I'm saying it out loud kind of sounds like therapy, doesn't it?
But a little bit. But also it is absolutely one of my favorite things with just this group here, the four of us together. I remember the first time I met the two of you, you know, we did all the big stuff and we walked around Chicago, and then we went back to Ray's place and played that Where Shall We Begin game. And we just went, yep, day one, let's get super vulnerable together. And it really was just, hey, let's share these stories. Let's exist in space together. And I actually want to know you. I want to know your hurts. I want to know the good stuff. I want to know who you are. And everything that you two are sharing right now is 100% why I love having Elliot in my life. Because, you know, I've had relationships in the past where I don't want to walk on eggshells and I want to talk about it, but they're not willing to. So I try, but it's not met well. It's met with a wall, or it's met with, well, I'm already doing everything right. So clearly this is on your side and you need to fix it. I was explicitly told that one time. It was great. We did not stay in a relationship for much longer after that. But, you know, with Elliot, every time I share some sort of a vulnerability or all of my past trauma tells me, don't say this, I say it anyway. And it is always met with kindness and compassion and acceptance of who I am. And just over the last several years, Like there's just been so much healing because of this relationship, because there is that authenticity and I care about you and I just want you to be yourself in this relationship.
Yeah. It was like the other night when we had like it was like energies were mismatched or something. And Ethan thought that I was annoyed at him doing something beforehand. And he asked me the second time, he's like, are you sure you're not annoyed with me? And I was like, well, now I am. Because you keep asking me, but it was one of those things that if we didn't actually talk about it, then it would have just festered and it would have been something that I held on to as like, well, he just never stops asking me if I'm annoyed. But instead of me just being like, I wasn't annoyed before, but because you keep asking me, now I am. And now I don't want to talk to you because it's like, give me 10 minutes and I'll be back. And then that's what happened. And it was over. Mm-hmm. It's like it all dissipates if you just talk about it.
That last statement of Ray's is true. It all dissipates if you talk about it, but not just saying it out loud, having a conversation, having curiosity, being able to slow down and actually hear each other beyond the stress and the tension. We all have the ability to do this, but sometimes our past gets in the way. The good news is we can all get through this. We can. And in this episode in particular, we had so much to share that we actually decided to make this a two-parter. So this conversation and this idea that we're building will continue. Next episode, you will get even more dopamine dumps. We will talk about getting vulnerable. And in fact, we talk about what helps us build trust within hard conversations, how we've grown over the years, and what we've learned about ourselves through friendship. I love speaking with these three amazing humans and exploring what friendship means and how to be our authentic selves, even with people who are different from us. And yet we still feel completely loved and accepted for who we are. I feel like this episode is a perfect example of how to be vulnerable with others and how to meet someone who is being vulnerable in that same space. The more you can do this, the more trust can build. And I trust these three so completely. I have so much gratitude that they were willing to share with you all today on Insights with Us. So if you enjoyed what we talked about, please give us a follow and look out for part 2 of what friendship can look like and how to be your authentic self in your relationships. If you have any questions for this podcast or any themes you'd like us to focus on in the future, send us a message on Instagram at Insights With Us Podcast or send us an email at insightswithus@gmail.com. If you enjoyed this podcast and want to hear more, please follow, like, or subscribe. If you want to support the continuation of this podcast, you can donate. To do so, visit my website and donate on Podbean's Patron program or find me, Anastasia Soroka, on buymeacoffee.com. I appreciate you, and I appreciate that you are listening. Thank you for creating insight with us.